Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Magazine Presents, the Guns Podcast US, sponsored by Ruger. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent. Thanks for joining us here on one of the world's biggest gun talk programs, audio and video, as we chat with the interesting folks about the interesting stuff that makes up the world of shooting. And as I mentioned, we have a great sponsor on board, Ruger, and here's a quick word from them.
Looking for a firearm that's rugged, reliable, and built in America? Ruger Firearms has been trusted by shooters for generations, offering everything from hunting rifles to everyday carry handguns. Whether you're on the range, in the field, or protecting your home, Ruger delivers durability and performance you can count on. Discover the full lineup, explore new releases, and see why Ruger continues to set the standard. Visit Ruger.com today.
Well, joining me today is, this is a big shocker. It's Roy Huntington. Hey, Roy, thanks for joining us yet again.
Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought? Exactly. Well, we've got a good topic today. I think it's one that we were talking before we hit start, that it'll either inspire love or hate. This one of those things that's kind of polarizing in the shooting world, and that is pistol caliber carbines. I know that in my estimation, Roy, I think PCCs, pistol caliber carbines, kind of hit a high watermark, 5-ish years ago, and they're still out there. And I know Ruger makes some, and there's others, but I think they're not the new hotness that they were when suddenly they got rediscovered by maybe the gun media. But where do you think pistol caliber carbines sit in the world today?
Well, I agree with you too. Although there's a lot of pistol caliber carbines out there, but they tend to fly under the radar because the darling of everybody are these little short-barreled AR platforms.
Yeah.
8-inch barrels, 10-inch barrels, which are really, really cool until you shoot one with no ear protection on. you know, and I mean, it's like if you do that, then you need to have a suppressor on it. I mean, especially if it's a home defense gun. I mean, forget it.
Yep.
Your ears can survive.
The old Manfred man, blinded by the light. If you've shot a short-barreled carbine with most ammo in the dark, it'll you'll be blind, you'll be deaf. Other than that, you're perfectly ready to rock and roll.
Well, I mean, I've shot guns in the dark specifically to figure that out. And if you shoot a 9mm pistol caliber carbine, especially if you use subsonic ammunition, it works pretty darn good at nighttime. It doesn't blow your eyes out. It doesn't, it's another reason why I don't like ports on defensive guns, because people say you can't see the flame at nighttime. But I beg to differ with you. I certainly have seen it, and you get that kind of blind thing going on. So, but pistol caliber carbines, I think, let's talk about home defense, because, there's Clint Smith used to do a carbine, home defense carbine. A lot of people showed up with pistol caliber carbines. And I think the biggest thing I learned there is that in your mind, in most people's minds, if they're not real familiar with this, is they think, well, if I have a rifle in my house, it's going to get in the way. I'm going to bang the doors. And then if I go around a corner, he'll grab the muzzle, which Clint, he's funny. He goes, cool, pull the trigger.
Exactly.
You've
got the other end. Here you go. Wait for the flash.
He aimed it for you. But and that's how I was. I thought, well, why would you have that? I mean, I was a strong proponent for short-barreled 870s or side-by-side shotguns, but they're the same length, essentially. And so I think Clint demonstrated it very well for everybody, like within 5 minutes of the first day. He said, now at the time we didn't have short barrel guns. I mean, like SWAT teams had them and stuff, but if you had an AR-15, it was a 16-inch barrel rifle. And so he said, okay, you hold your rifle up and shoulder it. And so somebody did. And then he took somebody else and stood him shoulder to shoulder with him. And he said, now put your handgun out at arm's distance as if you're aiming. And lo and behold, I mean, the muzzles were, yeah, the muzzles were virtually right next to each other. And, and it's like, well, I didn't think about that,
Exactly.
And
Well, and I know the argument well, yeah, I shoot from retention. Well, yes, you can shoot from retention. You can shoot from retention position with a shoulder arm, but that's not typically the optimal thing. Most of the time, no matter what foundation or style, isosceles, and it doesn't matter. The muzzle of your pistol is going to be out about the same distance. So that's something to think about.
It's really true. People say, "Oh, well, I always use my sights and stuff," but no, you don't actually use your sights usually in a defensive shooting because you're just like, "Oh my God," you can put the gun out and do that. And I agree with you about the rifles. You unless you train like son of a gun, you are going to shoulder the gun as you aim it because your mind wants to be the best it can be. And the best you can be with a shoulder gun is aiming it the way or at least indexing over the top of it. And I think the biggest thing for a pistol caliber carbine for a home defense situation, I think it's perfect for a novice shooter. Go get yourself one of the Ruger PC carbines in 9mm or whatever caliber you want. Doesn't matter, or you pick the one you like. It doesn't matter. You want a 9mm AR style pistol caliber carbine, do that too. And, because what it does, and I tried to get my agency to go to the very first generation of Ruger pistol caliber rifles. Remember when they came out? They were, 9mm, and everyone looked and sneered and said, that's stupid, and it's not an AR-15 and it's not, well, and that's all true. It was never intended to be a rifle. What I tried to make them understand was it's just a more accurate system to deliver your handgun ammunition. It's as simple as that. That's all it is, and I lost count of the number of times I've had somebody and they're shooting their revolver or their semi-auto pistol and they're having a lot of trouble and barely keeping it on the silhouette at 10 yards or something. And just to get them to calm down, I'll give them like a 9mm carbine or something, or a 22, doesn't matter what, just a little rifle. And suddenly they're hitting the target, like exactly where they need to be shooting it. And it instills some confidence and it's like they don't want to let go of it. When you say, now let's go back and shoot the handgun, they go, well, no, actually, I like this one a lot. So.
Well, the whole idea of pistol caliber carbine, if you're saying you would choose the handgun in a defensive situation, we've said it many, many times, as Clint Smith said, that's the gun you grab or maybe have on you to fight your way back to a rifle or shotgun that you would have chosen if you knew the confrontation was coming. So, everything has its place, but I think, really trying to boil this down is for everybody that just, it takes it for granted that a AR-15 or a shorty AR, pistol brace type thing is the way to go. And, really what we're just trying to say is that's a choice. It's a decent choice for a lot of folks, but don't count out the pistol caliber carbine because what you said, you get all the same advantages of the shoulder fired weapon. When you take handgun ammo and put it down a longer tube, dramatic increases in velocity and terminal ballistics. And you don't have all that flash and bang that it is something, especially middle of the night. So,
well, one of the things we're going to hear in the comments, they're going to say, well, I shoot a 10-inch, a short-barreled rifle AR-15 in 300 blackout, or it doesn't matter. Well, some rifle caliber like that. And my counter to that is, like you say, muzzle blast. If they're sophisticated, then they have a suppressor, then that's something different, right? Mm-hmm. But the average person's not going to do that. And so and there's something to think about is when you shorten a barrel like that for .223, you lose significant velocity. And I've seen gel tests where like a Ruger PC9 carbine and a short-barreled AR-15, we shoot them into gel, and the Ruger carbine penetrates twice as far. 16, 18 inches. And while the other one goes maybe 8 inches sometimes, depending on the ammunition. And people will say, Well, then that will keep it from going through two walls and killing the neighbor, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't really matter.
Yep.
You shouldn't be shooting if you're in an apartment like that. You need to rethink how you should defend yourself. But nobody wants to be shot by anything. And
we often tend to forget that as gun writers, especially. Yeah.
I mean,
getting shot sucks.
Yeah. And so, if you have a Taylor's and Company lever action model 92 in 3220, guess what? It'll work perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got whatever, it doesn't really matter. Just get the rifle that you're comfortable with. But right now in today's market, especially now when we're airing this, the firearms market is very flat. So things are very affordable. And there's no doubt in my mind you could go into your favorite local gun shop or box store or something and walk out with a suitable pistol caliber carbine of some flavor or design that catches your eye. And I promise you, if you have never shot a gun before in your life, if you take that to the range and get someone to show you how to load it and where the safety is and how to be safe, the first time you shoot it, you're going to hit the target. And if I hand you a Glock, that may or may not be the case. Probably not going to be the case, Yeah. So,
well, let me interrupt you there. It's funny because you'll do the same thing with an AR the first time. The second time, you'll probably have a flinch or something if you've not shot, because there's no recoil, obviously, but there's lots of other things happening. And to me, it always seems like the shooting impulse from pull of trigger till everything's reset and ready to go. There's just a lot going on, There's clicking and slamming and banging, and of course
clang and next to your ear, the buffer tube.
Yeah, so that's funny. I never thought of that. For a novice shooter with an AR, it's the second shot that I'll be interested to see where that goes.
I was in San Diego one time. We had gone back. Let's see, we met the NSSF there, and we were co-hosting an event at a local indoor range, and we invited local media. And a couple of the mainstream, NBC kind of media showed up, whatever Cub reporter, right? They get that duty. But there were two or three other little regional magazines and, kind of liberally kind of newspaper, that kind of stuff showed up. And so we went out and we talked about guns and we introduced them to shooting. And as I recall, really nobody had any experience. And so we went out onto the line, and we had police officer friends of ours who were firearms instructors. And so they were taking the time to do that while we did our handshaking and PR stuff. And so everybody shot 22 pistols. Everybody thought it was great fun. There was a lot of giggling and tee-heeing and high-fiving, right?
Look, I'm shooting a real gun.
Yeah, that's a thing, right? And then I'm pretty sure we had some kind of a 9mm rifle, like a Ruger or something, right?
Yeah.
And so they shot that and everyone loved it. Wow, look, they're hitting the targets, and they're just high-fiving and running down the other end of the range and telling their girlfriend how good they did and ran back up. So then they broke out the AR-15, and they didn't shoot it first, they didn't demonstrate it, which I thought was really funny. Yeah, because if they demonstrated it, they probably would have gone, I don't think I want to shoot that, right? But I remember watching this one little gal. He loads it up and points down, here's what you do, and pull the trigger like this. And it was bam, just like you said, one shot. Yeah. And then she puts the rifle down, her eyes get to be, saucer size, and she turns around and looks at us through the glass, and, and I think,
how about that?
That's it. They pretty much, shot it once or twice, and nobody wanted to do that, right? They wanted to, can we shoot more of those 2,000 guns?
Yeah. Wow. It's true. And, the funny thing is there's a lot of guys, and okay, I'm going to address the fanboys who shouldn't be upset right now, but they undoubtedly are, the AR-15 fanboys. I got to say, I've seen a lot of people with really tricked out ARs who can't shoot worth a damn. And that, It's funny, like we've talked before, they'll dump an entire mag and they might go to do some slow fire and there's one over there. And, well, it's more fun to do this. Well, it's like you can't hit, can you, buddy? But you got you a $2,500 AR with all the bells and whistles, including a laser designator. So,
yeah,
I just wanted to get our disclaimer in. We say it all the freaking time, and it doesn't seem to get through. We're not against ARs. I got a whole closet full of them. I know Roy does, but we're just saying there are other options. So go ahead, Roy.
Well, and rightfully, we have to say the same thing about a Glock. There are people who own Glocks or SIGs, or it doesn't matter what they are, and they can't hit anything worth beans either. And because I think it's all just really a matter of training and stuff. I mean, if you insist that your very first rifle needs to be, for instance, an AR-15 or some other, some AK or Valmet or something like that, and you choose not to get any training, then you'll fumble your way through it. It will probably eventually go off, and it'll be really loud, and you'll shoot some ammunition and not hit the target, and then you'll have to clean up your brass, and then you'll kind of wonder what all that was about. Was it fun or was it not fun? I'm not really sure. It's not like on video games where they go pew 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 pew. Everybody runs all around. It's not at all like that. So,
yep.
I think I have a Smith & Wesson, I forget what they call them. It's like a slightly smaller AR-15, but it's a 22 long rifle,
right.
Yeah. And I remember when they launched it, I thought, man, you guys are smart, because all the controls are exactly the same as an AR-15. And we were doing American Cop then, and I encouraged SWAT teams to invest in some of these guns because it's cheap and easy to train with. All of the manual of arms is exactly the same, and they did. I think a lot of SWAT agencies did do that and maybe still do. But I have one of these guns, and frankly, I keep it by the front door. It's got a green laser on it and 2 flashlights, and I think the magazines are 30 rounds. I keep 20 rounds in it just because it's easier and it's very reliable. But we are overrun with gray squirrels and too many raccoons and armadillos and coyotes and you name it, and we have them, right? And so usually it's, you go outside to let the dog out at night. You've been to my house. I've got this huge pasture right there, right? And you go outside, you see the dogs, hackles go up and they start growling and looking out there. So I just step back inside and grab this little rifle and, light up my west pasture, and sure enough, there's, Mr. Armadillo out there digging holes. And so, you light them up with the laser and squeeze the trigger, and that solves your problem. And so I guess the point I was trying to make is that different guns have different jobs. And if you really do want to do this, if you're determined to have an AR-15 or a rifle caliber as a home defense gun, I really recommend get yourself like a Ruger 1022 or one of these Smith & Wesson models, styles, and cut your teeth on that. You really need to, because you may go, but, really, I don't really like this after all. I think I'd rather have a handgun. But that's a good way for you to just wet your whistle. And the other good thing about that is if you decide, yes, I do want to move on, you'll still have a cool gun that I promise you'll still get a lot of use out of.
Exactly. Well, I was thinking back to the first time I shot a Ruger PC carbine, and I'd seen them for a while, and I finally got my hands on one. And the first time I shot it was like, that's nice. I like that. I can do good work with that because recoil's minimal, report is minimal. They run. There's no. It's weird to say this, but I really believe this. It's a low stress gun. Does that make sense?
No, it's a good way to. Yeah, it's an accurate low stress gun. When
Yeah.
when the police department that I was on, San Diego, finally decided, gee, I have an idea. Let's try these Ruger carbines out. After all, because as they were teaching people on the range, and people, they just took to them. They loved them. And I remember it was really funny because if there were 4 police cars stopped on some hot call, well, there were 4 Ruger carbines in people's hands. Because they knew that they were going to hit better with it. They were going to be more accurate. You're getting better velocity out of their duty rounds. So it's really funny. I remember seeing a few news pictures of San Diego police respond to a robbery alarm someplace, and there'll be 6 police cars out there and 6 policemen leaning over hoods with Ruger PC9 carbines, right? And interestingly, though, because you know this too, is that if 3 cops open up on a bad guy and the cops are using their handguns, well, nowadays they'll shoot 150 rounds. But I mean, let's say realistically they shoot 20 times between them. Well, they'll probably hit, like on a really, really, really good day, they might hit half of those. I mean, that would be exceptional. Right? Maybe everyone was pretty close. Well, boy, the stats started coming in. And I remember seeing a video. It was 3 San Diego cops. They had the PC9 carbines. All 3 of them opened up on a guy at about maybe 15 yards, right? A lot of rounds went downrange. No misses.
Oh, my. Wow. Bad day for bad guy.
Well, yeah, he went down like a bucket of bolts, right? But I mean, hello, the point is, what is the old adage that there's a lawyer attached to every bullet, that you fire?
Yep.
And it was just astounding. I mean, we were all just, some of us were saying, I told you, but the nefarious thing happened, though, is that after that, the real shooters, the SWAT guys and all that, they wanted a real rifle. They wanted an AR-15. I didn't want this pistol stuff. It's not a rifle. It won't go through a bulletproof vest, which is all of that's true. And it was never intended to do any of that kind of stuff. But But if you're Sam and Susie homemaker and you're at home and you have one of these guns, well, then you're perfectly armed.
Boy, howdy, as they say. And I got to tell you, my own use case, I've talked about it a lot, that I keep a handgun next to in the nightstand, in a suitable locked, but quickly releasable container under the bed. I actually just did a piece that I think is either out or soon will be out on gunsmagazine.com about the Remington 887. I don't remember if you remember those, Roy. I liked them. A lot of people didn't, other than they've got the worst design feature of a modern firearm, the Remington finger guillotine, where the forend came all the way back past the trigger guard. So when you went to release the action or you had your finger straight, you might have a problem. So anyway, long story short, that's the gun that sits under my side of the bed. However, I now have a Ruger 10 millimeter PC carbine, and I think that's going to join it. I don't know that I'll take the shotgun out of there because I may need to hand something to the wife, but no, I think that PC carbine kind of hits the sweet spot. It's a light, nimble, easy to handle gun. Like I said, a low stress kind of gun. And that 10 millimeter, I've shot a lot of 10 millimeters. They can be a handful. They can be a challenge, especially follow-up shots. I've not seen that quite so much with the 10 millimeter carbine. It kicks more than you think it would, because it's just a handgun round, kind of like 357 lever actions. But I think it's going to hit that nice sweet spot, because goodness knows if I can put 10 millimeter rounds accurately on target, it's going to do its job, I'm pretty sure. So.
Well, I think that's a really good case of you have confidence in the 10 millimeter, so that's what you should have, right? Mm-hmm. But I also want to remind people that you don't need to have that, right?
No.
In other words,
fully agree.
Yeah, if you can afford a 9mm and the ammunition's cheap and stuff like that, well, then buy that because you kill the bad guy, just as well.
Yeah.
Here, we live in the country. We have a 360-degree field of fire around our house, and my wife's favorite rifle that she has is a 1894 Marlin cowboy gun. It's a little short gun they made 20 years ago or so, and
Yeah.
it's in .45 Colt. And we keep it loaded with Black Hills .45 Colt cowboy loads,
Yeah.
So call it I don't know what it is, a 250 at about 1,000 feet per second out of this rifle.
Yeah.
Well, she shoots it really good. And I like it because you keep the magazine loaded, the chamber empty. It's in the kitchen pantry door, right?
Yeah.
And there has been more than one occasion where I see her look over my shoulder out our back. You know how that looks back over, the walnut grove? And she'll look there and I can see her get distracted. And then she dashes over there, grabs that gun out onto the back porch. It's levering the gun as she goes out there. And then she's chased some coyote across the pasture with it,
Wow.
I know, but it's like, I wouldn't want to be shot with that.
No kidding.
I mean, my gosh. And so.
Well, but we're not real gun riders, Roy. I've never taken a deer 800 yards running offhand in a driving snowstorm.
I know. So. I think if people would focus more on what is the job? What's the task at hand? And you can start with what's the minimum do I need to accomplish this task, right? If I need to reshape a piece of metal, then the minimum thing I need is a good file, right? And now I may reach a point where I wish I had an electric drill too, and then eventually I wish I had a lathe and a milling machine, right? As your skills develop. Well, this is kind of the same way. So if you're getting into this, your problem is I want a reliable way to protect my family at home that's safe and that I can manage, right? And so just start there. Sherlock Holmes says, if you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, are the facts. And so if you eliminate all of the things, like, do I really need a rifle caliber? Do I really need night vision? Do I really need, and if you do
I need a plate carrier?
Yeah, do I need a plate carrier? And that's a really funny thing. Yeah, everyone says, hey, what kind of plate carrier do you have? It's like, well, I have a green shirt, I don't know. I'm not a SWAT guy or anything. So anyway, I think it's something for everyone. You do need to keep your eyes open, and before you just recoil in horror at the fact that we're recommending that you at least look at a pistol caliber rifle. We can call them carbines, but really, I mean, a 16-inch barrel, which is what most of them will have unless you're willing to invest the time and energy, to get the appropriate licenses and pay the taxes. It's going to have a 16-inch barrel. It's going to be 26 inches overall, give or take a little bit. Just a little longer than 2 feet. That's not bad, right? It would be perfectly handy for around the house. You just train a little bit with it. You teach the wife how to shoot it. You teach your oldest kids how to shoot it. And then it gets loaded and put wherever you decide to keep it, and you're protected now.
Yep. Nothing wrong with it. And I'll keep saying it because we kind of get tired of all those comments, but nothing against the AR. But I think especially younger males, if I can make a stereotype here, if you would consider trying something that's not the vaunted AR, you might find you shoot it better. And you can get more gun for the money, maybe. That's the nice thing. If you look at especially used guns now, they're not hot and sexy right at the moment. Nothing wrong with them, but they're not, the hotness. So you can probably score you a pretty good bargain someplace like Gunbroker or at your local gun store. So nothing wrong with them. I like them. I've got a bunch of them here. Just saying, keep the pistol caliber shoulder arm in your thoughts when you're making that decision about home defense. So, any parting words of wisdom there, oh wise guru Roy Huntington?
Well, the old KISS principle, where keep it simple, stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really applies, because if you're under duress, you are not thinking as clearly as you do normally.
Yeah.
So if you have a gun that you probably don't train with very much, and you're new to owning an AR-15, which the vast majority of people out there have bought these guns have never had any training, right? They play video games and watch TV and gone to the range with their buddy maybe. An AR-15 is a relatively complicated gun to run. As you said, the manual of arms is pretty complicated. Find your magazine, insert your magazine, run the bolt, make sure the bolt closes. Where's the safety? Is the safety disengaged or engaged, right? So now you shoot it and the slide locks back, or the bolt locks back. Now what? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to drop that. Do you insert a new magazine? Do you use the bolt release, or do you pull back on the op rod? Or, there's a lot going on there. And so do you really need to introduce that? Do it if you're willing to invest the time and energy, because they're very effective. Ask how many million soldiers who use them in combat and kill bad guys. Good for them. But yeah, that's all. Just think about that.
Well, I think, something you said there as part of your comment is one of those universal truths that maybe we should promote more. It's that idea of, if you're willing to invest the time and effort to do this, because every gun can be lethal and dangerous in a self-defense situation. But as we've seen many, many times, people aren't willing. And we've talked about that. Americans are terrible about that. I want the special insert, gun, bullet, tactic, flashlight, scabbard, holster, whatever. They want the magic one that will make them Robbie Latham or Clint Eastwood or whomever, and we tend to lose sight of the fact that we're supposed to practice. We're supposed to practice a lot and get better at it.
Think about this for a minute. I've been to Africa a few times. I've hunted, no dangerous game, but I've hunted with professional hunters who do that, right? To a man and one woman, they all have double rifles, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't see any AKs. I didn't see any 308 Valmets. I didn't see anything like that. And not a lot of bolt actions in the hands of the PHs. And if I did see one, it was a Mauser 98 style with a controlled feed, right? But the vast majority were double rifles, which, because we had long talks about it, if you think about it, you have two single shot rifles is what you have, right? So you have redundancy right there. So, I saw videos of my PH, and he had a client, and they were charged by these big elephants, with tusks and everything. And they were putting them down to where they literally dropped at their feet, and whether you like it or not, that's something other than this. But like he said, you can't afford to anything. He says sometimes you don't even have time to run a bolt. And he said, so this is fail safe. If I pull the trigger, if something doesn't happen, I pull the trigger on my other rifle, and the odds of two failures like that are remote. And that really means a lot. You shot my double rifle when you were here. There's just so much elegance about that simplicity. And I think keep that in mind, though. If you're looking at, do I want to use a long gun at home? Just keep thinking, what's a simple way to do this? And now I'm really going to wind some people up. If you have a break open single shot 357 Magnum, well, if you duct tape a flashlight on the end of the barrel and just keep your wits about you, I promise you'll protect your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
can you imagine going after, say, a Robbie Latham or a Jerry or Lena Mishalik, and that's all they had? I'm still betting on them. Okay.
Oh yeah.
It ain't the gun, kids. It ain't the gun.
It ain't the gun. So, well, the interesting topic. I'll watch the comments, and it'll be interesting to see the spread. I will say that even the pro AR people who hate it when someone says something bad about them, most often when they comment, they say, well, I don't really agree with what you say, but you guys are trying to be pretty open-minded and you're honest, and what you're saying is true in the real world. Or, so it's like they begrudgingly say, you do have some points there, right?
Yeah.
But then they say, yeah, but you shouldn't say bad things about AR-15s.
Okay. Well, we'll brace for those comments and letters. Of course, you can reach me at editor@gunspodcast.us. And before we go, some housekeeping, of course. Remember our great sponsor, Ruger.
Whether you're on the range, in the field, or protecting your home, Ruger delivers durability and performance you can count on. Discover the full lineup, explore new releases, and see why Ruger continues to set the standard. Visit Ruger.com today.
Well, before we go, of course, I've got to mention, stop by gunsmagazine.com, especially sign up for our daily newsletters. Yeah, the print magazines are gone, but the website's still there, and I and Tom McHale are still writing. Also, AmericanHandgunner.com. Same thing. You can go over there, sign up for newsletters, get all that great gun goodness delivered to your inbox every day. So that's gunsmagazine.com and AmericanHandgunner.com. And I think Roy's still got some stuff on there. So check it out. I know it's not the same as print, but it's what it is, and it's the future. So if you want to support what we've been doing and will do in the future, make sure you go to gunsmagazine.com and AmericanHandgunner.com. One final thing, if you want some merch, if you want your t-shirt, your hoodie, or your custom Guns Podcast US coffee mug, you can go to gunspodcast.us. Imagine that. Gunspodcast.us. We've got all your merch and some other fun stuff. So if you want some of that stuff and we want to see it at the SHOT Show here in a few months, go to gunspodcast.us. Well, that's it for this episode of Guns Magazine Presents the Guns Podcast US, which is brought to you by Ruger. I'm the host, Brent Weed, along with Roy Huntington. And as I always say, now get out there and get shooting.